Education Committee of the Extraordinary. Yes, thank you. I'm going to call to order the Education Committee of the Extraordinary Session. Mr. Clerk, will you take the roll? Members, you have to press blue button. Leader Camper, press your button, please. Making sure everybody's works. Representative Keem. Yep. Lafferty, Representative Lafferty. Press your button, please. So, members, Ms. Clerk, take the roll.
25 members present. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you much, Madam Clerk. Members, it's going to be a little bit slower today as we get used to the new system here. If we do have to take a vote on the computer, you'll see your buttons pop up. So just work through that with us very, very patiently, if you would. I'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody will please rise. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. So, am I on? So, as you notice, this is very passionate on both sides, ladies and gentlemen. You have your legislators here before you whose job it is to listen and be able to make an educated decision on what's best for the people of Tennessee and their children. I'm going to ask you to please be respectful. If you're holding a sign above your head, that's not going to work. It has to be in front of your chest so nobody behind you, you're blocking their line of sight. Okay? No outbursts, no clapping, no yelling, no finger snapping. Please be here and witness what's going on, and let us as legislators listen to this debate, make the debate, and listen to the information so we can make an informed decision. Now, you'll get one warning. A second warning, you'll be asked to leave. Also, as you can see, it's a packed house right now. If you have to get up to leave, you probably will not get your seat back because there's someone outside wanting to come in and take your seat. So we're going to be here a while. We're going to be respectful of everybody. We're going to be respectful of each other's on this committee. We're going to listen to this debate. We're going to do what's best for the people of Tennessee. If you have any type of cell phone that you hold up that is scrolling, I'm going to gavel you out of order. You can have something that's stationary, but nothing distracting, because there's a lot of pertinent information that's going to be disseminated today, and we have to be able to hear every word that's said in here. So please be respectful. You'll have plenty of time. When we gavel this thing out and you go outside, you can hoot and holler all you want, one way or the other, but please be respectful of the time that we're going to be here, because we're going to be together for a while today. Members, we'll run all dialogue through the chair. There'll be no running debates. Now, it's going to go a little bit slower than it used to because we're going to have to turn mics on and turn mics off, so just be patient. The format, and I'm anticipating we're going to get people asking a lot of questions here. Once you're recognized, you'll be able to ask one question and one follow-up. If I have other people on the list, then I will take your name and add it to a secondary list that once we get through everybody that wants to ask their initial question and follow-up, if we still want to go on, then I'll come back to that secondary list and start working my way back through the secondary list. Let's please stay on the bill and the topic, and it is very important. Like I said, please be respectful of both sides on this. And if you want to ask a question, just let Carly know up here, or Katie, and they'll let me know, and we'll get you on a list. Are there any questions on anything you've heard so far from the members? Okay. Oh. Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the one question, one follow-up, you were saying on the bill or for the people that's going to be testifying. What was that toward? I missed it.
That's fine. From the members, when we're asking questions on the bill, or if you're asking questions on people who are testifying, one question, one follow-up, and then if there's nobody else who signed on to speak, then I'll grant you another question. But if there's somebody else who wants to ask a question behind you who hasn't had the opportunity yet, I'm going to just ask you, I'm going to go on to the next person and give them the opportunity so we all have the opportunity to get our questions answered in a timely manner. Is that right? Leader Camper. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then once the list is exhausted, if the person had another follow-up based on something that was said during the other questioning, they'd be able to go back on the list. Is that what you're saying? So somebody's testifying, you ask a question, you actually follow up, two other people talk, and then something else hits you, you raise your hand, you can go back on the list.
That is correct. Fair enough? Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Everybody in the audience understands, right? Okay. Members, here we go. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot this. Does anybody have any personal orders they want to address? Okay. Representative Davis. Representative Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I had some, sorry, my voice, I've been a little bit sick, but I wanted to say that I had some wonderful young students come visit me in my office today, and I'd like to recognize them from Lakeway Christian Academy in White Pine, and then also Chesterton Academy in Knoxville. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time that y'all spent in my office and talking to me. Thank you.
McCalman. Representative McCalman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I have a good friend of mine in the audience right now who came up to see his government in work. If y'all would please welcome Mr. Rob Varell.
Members, any other orders? Representative Carringer?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome Knox County School Board Chairman Betsy Henderson, and also Zach Wishart, who is the principal of River's Edge Christian Academy in Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you.
Leader Camper?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think I saw the president of the Memphis branch NAACP here in the audience, so maybe he's still up. Maybe it's not room, he's outside. But anyway, let's make him feel welcome, as Mr. Chairman and members.
Johnson. And Representative Johnson?
Yeah, I see a whole host of folks from Knox County, so want to say hello and welcome to them.
And Representative Eldridge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd too like to recognize Lakeway Christian Academy and Kevin Klein out there in the audience. We're glad you all are here today.
Members, anybody else? Okay, members, we have one bill on the calendar today. It's House Bill 6004 by Leader Lamberth. Do I have a motion? Motion. Second? I have a motion to second. Leader Lamberth, you want to give us a brief description, or I think you have an amendment, sir. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I don't have a blue button on mine, so I think you have to turn my microphone.
Right there. How's that?
All right, I believe it's on. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment on this, and I'm subject to the will of the chair. Would you prefer to have the amendment placed on first, or have me describe the bill beforehand?
Well, let's do this. Let's get your bill before this committee first. So we have a House Bill 6004. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of hearing this amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Okay. You have an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. This amendment coded 2431. And what the amendment does is it just outlines the infrastructure funds that are in this bill. That's 80% of the sports wagering funds that have been coming into the state since we passed that bill. This would allocate this specifically so that $25 of this would go directly to $25 per student would go to distressed or at-risk counties, high-performing LEAs, and fast-growing counties. So of that 80%, immediately $25 per student would go to those public school systems to help with facilities funds. It's the first time we've ever done anything of that nature, but that's to assist those school systems in that nature, in that way. The next priority, if there is money left after that, then that funding would go to those schools that might have been impacted by any kind of natural disaster. And then any remainder that's open is any other LEA can apply for that, and there's a list there. This also makes sure that if the Hope Scholarship Program, which is where the sports wagering money was going into that fund, that fund's very healthy. It's in good shape right now. Anything that would be going into that, if for some reason that fund was not in good shape and became upside down or was running a deficit, then it would come from these funds first. Now, the sports wagering funds continue to increase, so we don't anticipate that that would occur, but it could. And so, because the lottery actually it's plateaued off and is headed down just a little bit. I don't play either one of them, so I don't contribute to that. But at the same time, a lot of folks, other people do. This amendment would also require statistical sampling of students to take the TCAP to fulfill the requirement for the nationally normed testing. And there are 300 and something schools that already utilize the TCAP as their nationally normed test, or as one of the ones that they utilize. And we're not forcing anybody else to take that. But at the same time, we do have a provision in here that would take a statistical sampling from those that take the TCAP so that we can compare that apples to apples. This also excludes any K through 12 educator that might be a member of the legislature from receiving the $2,000 bonus that is allocated for public school teachers in the main bill. Obviously, we don't want to put any of our members in a position where they would be voted in a bill that might directly contribute toward their household income. And so that just takes care of that issue that no K through 12 educator that's a current legislator would be able to benefit from that $2,000. That's what the amendment does, Mr. Chairman.
Leader Lambert, this does not make the bill. It is an amendment to the bill. Is that correct? Members, you've heard the amendment on what it does to the bill. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Okay. Representative Johnson.
Thank you. And is that one question? Is that what you said, Chairman?
Ask your question.
I wanted to clarify. You said that we get one question on this one each time, and we'll come back to me if you can. Is that correct?
So once again, you're going to get one question and a follow-up. And then if there's someone else behind you that wants to ask a new question, then they'll get their turn and you'll go to the bottom of the list.
Thank you.
If there's nobody behind you, then I'll come back to you for a third question.
Thank you. All right. So my understanding of the initial bill, when we talk about the hold harmless, what the situation was in the first school year, say 25, 26, that any school that lost students, there's a $3 million allotted to do hold harmless for those schools. Is that correct? Well, this is all. Well, let me ask the whole question. So that was in the first and original form of the bill, as I understand it. And then the new amendment says that there will be hold harmless, but it's the 26-27 school year for hold harmless will be the year that. So think about, if you think about how vouchers happen, you pass the bill, maybe a few people get it the first year, maybe a few more the second year. But it's really several years down the road when people really start getting on board if people like this. And so my understanding is on this amendment that if you don't get the money in the 26-27 school year for hold harmless, you didn't lose that year, then you will never get it in the following years. Is that correct?
Leader Lambert, go ahead.
No, it's entirely the opposite. And so that's actually what the amendment clarifies. We're setting a new floor every year. So for the last decade, we put $3.8 billion new dollars into K through 12 public education. At least those of us that have voted for those budgets and supported those initiatives, that's how much we put in. And the population of school children has actually, at times, has gone down, but overall in the state has gone down by about 715 students. Now, within each jurisdiction, as you know, sometimes that may be 1 or 2 students lost this year, and then they gain 10 or 12 the next year. It might go down a little bit. So it fluctuates on small amounts. So what we're doing for the first time ever is we are almost putting a maintenance of effort on the state of Tennessee. And the best example I can give on this, and this is way simpler than what the TISA formula actually works. I mean, there are many levers depending upon the characteristics of each student, but let's just assume for a moment that each school system was getting $1 per child, and they had 100 children this school year. So the 25-26 year in the school, they would get $100 under that formula. What we're saying is the 26-27 number, because there's a year lag in the TISA formula that's based on kind of the average daily attendance from this year for next year's funding, is that even if they went down to 90 children the year after that, it would be $100 that they're still receiving. If in year 3 it goes up to 110 children, they would get $110 if we're assuming $1 per child. The beauty of this particular amendment in this bill is that in year 4, if they went back down to 90, they would still get 110. It resets the floor up each time, and we're never going backward. We haven't gone backward for a decade in K through 12 public education funding, and we're not going to start now. So it resets that floor each year up, and it cannot go backwards.
Representative Johnson, follow up.
Yes, so I'm not talking about that so much as fiscal review stated that if you do not get the hold harmless the year 26-27 and you had that situation the next year, you would not be able to get it because you didn't get it in 26-27. So let's not confuse. My question is pretty simple. If you do not get the hold harmless money in 26-27, even though fiscal review said that you would not get it in future years, are you telling me they were wrong?
Leader Lambert.
I'm telling you, in the amendment, we clarified that language and worked with fiscal review directly on that. Every single year, it resets up and cannot go backwards. You'll never get less based on disenrollment for that TISA funding to go down. And again, there's a lot of levers to go into that, and my dollar per student is not an exact replica of what the TISA formula funding looks like, but it will continue to go up and cannot go down. That's what the amendment clarifies. I think you're looking at the original fiscal note. If you'll look at the fiscal note on the amendment, it will clarify that.
Okay, I guess the concern is.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. We got other people, so we'll come back to you. Representative Dixie.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is, through your explanation, you said there will be a statistically sample of students regarding the testing. My question is, why not all of the students take the same test that the public school students take, and how will the sample be determined?
Leader Lambert.
So both the bill and the amendment go together in that they all have to take a nationally normed test. Every one of them has to take that so that we can compare how these students are doing with these 20,000 scholarships to the 965,000 that are already in public school and the 75,000 that are in private school and the 30 to 35,000 that are homeschooled. So they're all taking a nationally normed test. But we already know that there's 300 and something private schools that at least utilize the TCAP in some format. So we'd like a statistical analysis of how that's working out of those students that are taking that TCAP versus those that are taking the TCAP through the public schools, and then compare that to the other nationally normed tests. The TCAP is a nationally normed test. It's just one that we created here in Tennessee.
Representative Dixie, follow up.
All right. So you're saying that all students are taking the TCAP regardless, whether they're in private or public schools? Or am I confusing that? Because it doesn't sound like that how can we compare apples to apples if every student is taking it in public school, but every student is not taking it in private school?
Leader Lambert.
That's why we want a statistical sampling of those that are in private schools that are taking the TCAP, compare those directly over, and then compare those with that are taking the other nationally normed test. Because there's multiple nationally normed tests that are out there. The TCAP is merely one of them.
Okay. Thank you. Leader Lambert, just for clarification. So if a private school qualifies for this scholarship, and they're one of those 300 schools that are already giving the TCAP, and they take a student that comes into their school, they're just going to continue to give the TCAP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leader, in your amendments under section 5, I think it's on page 2, subsection what, B? The last paragraph that talks about disaster relief. Is that? So are you saying that these funds are tied to the disaster relief bill that we have going forward, or is this dealing with future disasters? And is this for any LEA that take advantage of the voucher bill?
Leader Lamers.
Now, there's no connection with the other bills that are happening in a totally different committee right now that deal with disaster relief, but we are trying to set up for future disasters that may hit. We know that tornadoes hit every year. We know that hurricanes will hit. We know that disasters will occur. And unfortunately, in years past, we have had to play catch up whenever something like that happens. It is a predictable occurrence that we are going to have natural disasters. So what this does is it allows for any school that might get hit with a natural disaster in the future to be able to apply for these funds. And so we have already $20 million that if the appropriations bill that's in this special session were to pass, there's $20 million that is set aside to specifically rebuild a school that was destroyed in Hurricane Helene. We did the same thing for Waverly when that occurred. This sets up a fund where there's $25 per student that's going, but there will be money left in that fund that is there in case a disaster hits where we don't have to come into session or a special session or anything else. It's available quickly. And so this fund will be available for schools. Now, if for some reason it's not utilized for a natural disaster in that year, other schools can apply for that for a variety of different reasons. But it is one of the factors that we wanted to highlight and put that prominently in this, but it's more for future disasters.
Leader Camper, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But it's not tied to the fact that you did or didn't receive, your LEA participated in this voucher program. We're just seizing an opportunity, so to speak. The fact that we're dealing with vouchers to put this legislation in here. I'm just trying to see if there's a district that their board pass a resolution, they're not going to accept vouchers, but they end up in a disaster situation, they would or would not qualify for that. That's what I'm trying to get at. Since it's not the disaster relief district.
I got it.
Leader Lamers.
So let me be real clear. And I know this doesn't matter to a whole lot of folks, but the wording that we use actually matters to me. So a voucher takes money from a public school and moves it to a private school.
Right.
We've all heard that our whole lives.
Right.
Money follows the child.
Yeah.
This bill doesn't deal with vouchers. It deals with setting up scholarships from the general fund, and not one dime is coming from a public school. And there's no coordination whatsoever between this provision and whether or not any child within a district might accept a scholarship under the Education Freedom Act. It has nothing to do with each other whatsoever. And so you may have districts that don't have a single child. There's only 20,000 scholarships that we're setting up, again, for well over 1.1 million children in this state that go to school here. So you very well may have a county that doesn't have a child,
Right.
that might have a scholarship in that county.
That's
and it has
correct.
nothing to do with that public school being able to apply for and obtain this disaster relief for their school if something were to happen down the road. The two are completely ripped from one another and have nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
Take a little privilege here with you, if you don't mind. In section B on top of page 2. Where it said I and then 2I and 3I. Leave me on. Can you just give us a brief synopsis working through I, 2I, and 3? That might clarify a couple things. Yeah, for clarification, if you don't mind. You understand what I'm asking you?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, what I described earlier is exactly that. And so first and foremost, there's $25 per student that will be allocated to distressed and at-risk counties to go to high performance LEAs and fast growing LEAs.
That's A, B, and C, right?
That's A, B, and C right down through there. And then to the extent the funds remain in the disbursement account after the state treasurer makes the disbursements required in subdivision E1B1, If one or more LEAs have sustained significant damage to an existing public school building or facility due to the occurrence of an emergency or natural disaster, then the state treasurer will disperse an order in which the state treasurer receives completed applications, and it goes on from there. And it specifically says that the state treasurer shall disperse no less than 15% of any funds remaining in the disbursement account after disbursement is made for all the rest of it, pursuant to E1B1I and the other qualifying LEAs. And then it continues from there, Mr. Chairman.
And on 3 is what's left over, and then you get discretion on buildings, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Representative Salinas,
Oh, I don't,
you're okay?
yes, I'm good.
Okay. Representative Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Leader, forgive me, I was not intending to ask a question, but wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify, going to section 4 of the amendment. And it's at the bottom of page 6 and bleeds into page 7 of our amendment pack. And I'm reading in the research, it makes a change to where an LEA will receive money for the $2,000 teacher bonus only if the LEA or charter school adopts an affirming resolution for the Education Freedom Act of 2025. I think we can add to that research note and say, if they adopt a resolution supporting of section 4 of this particular piece of legislation, it's not the overall Education Freedom Act of 2025, it's just section 4. Just to have you clarify that, if you could, Mr. Leader.
Yes, absolutely. So, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. That's on me. Sorry about that. I'm going to get in trouble now too. But absolutely, it is just a section 4. And so we're allocating $198 million of one-time funds for $2,000 bonuses for every single teacher within this state. And the primary reason for that, and you've been here I won't say twice as long as I have, but a while longer. And so you've seen many times where we've passed raises here. And in fact, we've gone away from even saying what the percentage of raise is. We just say the total amount, because we know that we at the state, 7 out of the last 8 years, have provided raises for our hardworking teachers. And yet by the time it goes to the county commission and down to the school board, sometimes that gets watered down and it goes all over the place. And in some counties may not have even gone to the teachers at all. So all we're asking the county school boards to do is that if you want to make sure that your local teachers get a $2,000 bonus, and that's the amount that it's going to be, then they just have to pass a resolution saying in section 4, we want that bonus to go to our teachers. I don't know every circumstance in every district. For some reason, they may not want to do that. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. And I guarantee you their teachers would prefer them to do it, but they don't have to agree with everything that it's in this bill. It's just section 4.
Fair enough. Anybody else? Representative Dixie.
Old habits die bad. I was trying not to keep doing it. So I had a question about the $25 that you said that 25, it'll first go to rural or distressed counties, high performing districts. My question is, shouldn't we be focusing on the low performing schools, the ones that are struggling? Why are they omitted from this particular class? Because they're the ones that we need to pay a little bit more attention to, because if not, we're going to exasperate the difference between the haves and have-nots and the top, and it's just going to make the difference between the bottom performers and the high performers even larger. So why are we ignoring the low performing schools that probably need more resources? And they're not low performing because students aren't able. It's just maybe the circumstances of that area. It could be economic. It could be a lot of things that go into why that school or those students are low performing. So why are we ignoring them?
Leader Lambert.
This year in the state budget, I would anticipate we'll spend roughly $7 billion on K through 12 public school. We're definitely not ignoring anyone. This deals with about anywhere between $70 and $90 million, depending on what the gaming amount comes in this year. It's 80% of what total comes in on that sports wagering fund. This is just going to those, at-risk and distressed counties, because their property tax base, quite frankly, is not the same as some of those wealthier counties in this state. When they tax a penny on their property tax, it doesn't get even a tenth of what some of the counties would get. And so this is for facilities. And so this is probably not going to necessarily build another school for them, but it might fix an HVAC system. I mean, it is specifically for those. So for the at-risk and distressed counties, I think it's clear and we could all agree that this facilities funding is extremely important to them. The same with the high growth districts. I mean, your high growth districts, it is extremely difficult for some counties in this state to be able to keep up with their growth because they've done a really good job. They've got a lot of folks that are moving in there, many from outside of Tennessee, but they're paying for all those schools on their own. The state doesn't pay for that. We on higher education, we pay for buildings. On state buildings, we pay for buildings. We even put money out there for TCATs, did $1 billion a couple of years ago. And we've done some where we did $1 million per high school and $500,000 per middle school from some CTE money, but that was one time. This would be recurring so that those fast growing districts have at least something they can dip into to kind of guarantee a certain amount. They can utilize that however they want to, as long as the facilities. And really the last one is just more of a recognition and a benefit to those school systems that have got more than 50% of their schools that are A or above. We do need to focus on bringing other school systems up that are not doing as well. But every now and again, it's probably a good idea that we actually have a positive incentive out there for school districts that are really rocking it, that are doing a really, really good job. And hopefully that will give every other district the desire to try to get to that point. So I'm with you. I want to help everybody up. We want to improve our entire school system. But when you have some school districts that are really knocking it out of the park, we should also recognize that. So that's why each one of those categories.
Follow up?
And as part of your explanation, you mentioned about 80% come from the sports betting. Now, currently, does that sports betting, it supports our higher education students and for going into college and students like that? How will this bill impact supporting those students if we're taking 80% of that money that would normally support higher education to now support K-12?
Leader Lambert?
So it goes, the Hope Scholarship Fund in large part is made up by lottery proceeds. So the sports wagering money is actually new funds that have come in. The Hope Scholarship Fund is well funded. The corpus is there. It's in good shape. But that's what this amendment actually entails, is that if we were to have a year where that dipped down below, where it endangered that Hope Scholarship Fund, then this would be the first fund that we would pull back out of. And so this is there every year, so long as that Hope Scholarship Fund, because that's the first promise we've made. I mean, Hope, Tennessee Promise, Reconnect, all of that's coming out of those lottery funds. And we've told people you can count on that. So we're going to continue to make good on that promise. But these funds have been coming in excess of that. I mean, this is the sports wagering thing. I'll just say right now, I don't recommend that you gamble. Your money comes hard. You earn a living. It's very difficult to get that money. I don't recommend people gamble. I don't do it, but there's a whole lot of people out there that enjoy doing it. And so we allowed them to gamble online and sports wagering. So because of that, there's a lot of funds that are coming in above and beyond what used to come in from the lottery. And so it has been a very popular thing. Again, all I can do is caution people, please, for God's sakes, don't gamble with money you can't afford to lose, because it gets people in a real bad spot sometimes. But it does seem to be coming in large amount.
Members, over the last 6 years since I've been up here, we've been very cautious in education about expending excessive amounts away from promise. And so we've gotten the corpus in a position where we're basically self-funding promise right now. Depending on what happens in the economy, what happens in our lottery of people playing the lottery, sometimes we need to dip into that sports wagering money to shore up that shortfall. If this is a year like that, this amendment now takes care of that, where before we would draw any money for this program, we're going to shore up our commitment to hope and to promise. Okay. Representative Moody.
Thank you, Chairman. And Leader Lambert, I'd like to revisit one more time the natural disaster part. Our district was hit on April 3rd, 2023 with 2 tornadoes that took out 2 of our schools completely. So did I understand you to say that if there's money left over, they could apply for that? That would be their way to get some more help.
I don't want to get in trouble again, Mr. Chairman.
Multitasking, sorry.
So I'm just saying, I won't go through the chair. That's exactly what this is for. And so that specific amount right there, and we put that high up on the list. So after the $25 comes out, that should not use up, I mean, that should be really less than half of this fund. And then the other half is there for exactly that. And once this fund is set up, that you don't have to wait that way. I mean, because unfortunately for Waverly and for other parts of the state, I mean, sometimes there is a lag because we may not be in session. It may take time. This is a fund that would be there so that immediately the treasurer could go ahead and get those funds out as soon as they know what insurance is going to cover or not cover.
Thank you.
Members, I have no one left to speak. Oh, Representative Johnson?
Mr. Chair. Going back to this, I want to make sure, because as it reads, you have to meet the qualifications for the hold harmless. And the section 2 here, the language is the same as the initial bill. And it appears that if you if you didn't qualify for hold harmless then going forward you would not. And my question is, because currently, does this change? There was $3.3 million in the budget for hold harmless. Then there's an independent audit of this bill that says in the first year, we are going to have $45 million less in TISA because of the voucher bill. So that's under the idea that 65% of the people receiving these vouchers are already in private school. 35% will be leaving public school to go to private school. And then therefore that would cause a $45 million shortage to TISA. But there's only $3.3 million in hold harmless. Is that the correct amount of money that is there? And I'm really hearing that the way this is written, there's nothing in the number 2 that says you will be held, you could get hold harmless monies if you didn't get it in 26, 27.
I'm sorry, and I don't know where that independent analysis came from, but I would certainly doubt their math skills. This money doesn't come from TISA, period. It comes from the general fund. There's 20,000 scholarships that are being set up that comes from the general fund. It's $148 million that is directly from sales tax revenue that's come into the state. That's actually $148 million that was left unspent last year. That's where that comes from. And there is no money coming from public schools at all. I know you don't want to believe it, but yes, that is absolutely too good for both parties. And you may not want to believe it, but it's true. Public school will continue to receive all the money and then some that they're going to receive, and we're setting up a scholarship fund. It is very different from really anything anybody's done in the nation, but we don't have to in this state since we balanced our budgets. We've been very careful about how we've spent, and we've underspent those budgets every year. So the money is there to do 20,000 scholarships and absolutely hold harmless every single year and continue to grow the actual funds that are going to K through 12 public education. That's what we've done for a decade. And the best predictor of future behavior is past performance. $3.8 billion new dollars into K through 12 public schools. We have doubled the amount that has gone into most public schools in this state over the last decade. And I would note the good representatives from Knox County voted against most of those budgets.
Sharon's going to ask a question here. Representative Johnson, on the fiscal analysis, where are you getting we're trying to find the $3 million. We can't find it. That's a positive for TISA, right?
Huh.
That's an increase to TISA, not a
That's
decrease.
what's in the budget for hold harmless. Yeah, there.
It's right there.
It's under expenditures, FY 25, 26, fiscal year 25, 26. That's for next year.
And from?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys just follow up?
Yeah, I did.
We'll come back to you.
And so the follow-up would be, this is not what the language says. And the reality is that wherever the money comes from, so you're telling me that we're going to fund 2 school systems and that we are going to pay twice, and we're asking taxpayers to fund 2 school systems. And instead of, when we are 45th in the nation, you can throw out those numbers all you want about how much we've spent in education, but we're 45th in the nation in spending in public education. And so the reality is we're doubling and adding to what we're already spending, according to you. But what that ultimately means is that it's going to deplete the funds for public education. We know that. We've seen it. You can pretend like Tennessee is different. You can act like people can take a voucher and go get speech therapy for their child because they have to sign them out of special education to even take a voucher. You have to sign away their
Representative
rights
Johnson,
to
you got a
free and
question coming here?
appropriate public education.
Do you have a question coming?
I do.
Go ahead. On the amendment.
So do you want to say right now that public schools going forward will receive no less money, considering cost of living increases, than they are currently receiving right now?
Leader Lambert.
Absolutely. It's what we've done for a decade, and you voted against every one of those budgets. So the rest of us are going to come
Leader
down here and
Lambert.
get the job done.
Leader Lambert. Leader Lambert. Okay. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you very much. One of the things that I thought was really important in section 4, when we talk about the bonuses, on page 5 of the amendment, it talks about that the department shall award a one-time bonus to each teacher that's employed in a kindergarten through grade 12 for state special school managed and controlled by the department. So our Tennessee School for the Blind and our Tennessee School for the Deaf, those teachers will receive that one-time bonus. And I wanted to say thank you for including them. And that's an important aspect of this that I think a lot of times they're not recognized. And so thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
At your own risk, Leader Lambert.
No, thank you, and I appreciate it. And it's important that every single teacher, including those, get a $2,000 bonus, and that's guaranteed to go to them instead of potentially getting watered down and reduced at some level beyond the way.
Representative Dixie. Wait a second.
And I appreciate your indulgence on this. It doesn't go unnoticed. Quick question, just for clarification. As a legislator, my child would not be eligible for the voucher, and my wife, as an educator, would not be eligible for the bonus, correct?
Leader Lambert.
So as a legislator, you would not be eligible for the bonus if you were a K through 12 public school teacher. I do not think there's a provision in here about a spouse. So that would be just something that I would recommend, that if anybody has a spouse that would be eligible for this $2,000 bonus, just as if you have a spouse who is a state employee, that you declare a conflict on that and vote your conscience in your district. So a member would need to declare a conflict on that, in my opinion. Now, that's something to talk about with the Ethics Council, but the prohibition is against the legislator receiving that bonus. Now, as far as the scholarships, I believe there's nothing that would prohibit someone from being able to apply for those. Now, those are first come, first serve. I would encourage any legislator or member of the executive branch not to apply for those. My children are in public school. They go to public high school, public middle school in my district, and my little brother's a public school teacher. That's where my kids are going to remain for the remainder of their educational journey, because Sumner County does a fantastic job. I'm very pleased with the job that they're doing there. So I would encourage legislators not to apply for these scholarships. There's only 20,000 of them, but I don't think there's anything in the bill that prohibits that.
Hold on. Representative Johnson, you have clarification for some information, please.
According to the fiscal note, it does say that
Page.
on the bottom of page 5, it says we'll be spending 50 million less, and also the 3,300,000 is there as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not what this is.
Okay. Is that it? Leader Lambert, sorry.
Again, just to clarify, no public school loses even 1 red cent due to this bill. And in fact, if a child leaves due to disenrollment for any reason, the amount that they receive, if it were to reduce their TISA funding, would be the same. It is a extraordinarily good deal for public school in this state, because we continue every single year to invest more money into K through 12 public education. That's what we're going to keep doing from here forward.
Let's clarify that statement, committee, okay? First of all, let me read it to you first. There will be a decrease in state expenditures and a corresponding decrease in local revenue of $50 million based off of 7,000 scholarship recipients. However, there's a sentence right after that that was omitted. These decreases will be offset to a certain extent by allocations to ensure that an LEA's TISA allocation for the 26-27 is not less than. So
Exactly.
we only got half the story there. The complete story is what it was written in the fiscal note, that they will be made whole through the state. So that wasn't, no, let's not go there. Not go there. So that's in the fiscal note. If you want to read it, ladies and gentlemen, it's in the fiscal note, and it's the bottom of page 5. There's 2 little bullet points. You can read it yourself. I don't see anybody else on the list. Not seeing anybody else. What? Leader Lambert, go ahead. You can finish up.
Mr. Chairman, I know we wandered in the bill, and I apologize. I probably did a bit of that myself, but I think we're still on my amendment.
We are. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Without any further questions, we're going to take the vote. It'll be a voice vote. All those in favor of adding amendment 2431 to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Ayes have it. Our bill is in the proper position right now. Now, we have a bunch of people that want to testify. I want to be respectful of these people's time who've come up to testify. So I got to do a little bit of housekeeping here. So we have a bunch of people who want to speak, but we have some people here that I want to identify to the committee. If there's a question that gets asked that we can't answer or the sponsor can't answer, we have experts here from departments that can provide information. So I'm just going to let you know who has let us know they're available to answer questions. Alex, and if I call your name, please stand up. Alex Lewis from the governor's office. Alexa Witcher from the governor's office. Jack Powers from the Department of Education. Sam Piercy from the Department of Education. And Nathan James, he's probably outside with the State Board of Education. So those are people, members, if we can't get an answer, we will go out of session to get the answer from those people. Now we have people that want to speak in opposition to this. When I call your name, come up to the seats in front, sit on this side. Sit on this side, okay, as I call your name. First one is Aiden Pratt. Aiden Pratt, come on up. Sit in that first chair on the aisle right there. Next is Drew Sutton. Drew, sit right next to him if you would, please. Lastly is Candace Ashburn. Candace Ashburn. Excuse me? She's not present. She's not present, okay. And Matt Hickson, sure. Do we have, I don't have one from him. Matt Hickson. Matt Hickson. You need to find that for me because I got to have it. Everybody stay put. I got to do something here real quick. 30-second recess. Nobody move. Well, I got to let me know why he's going to have to step down. Going to bring the Education Committee of the Extraordinary Session back to order. So, Mr. Hickson, is it? Okay, so in discussions with Leader with Leader Camper, sorry about that. Mr. Hickson, we cannot find where you signed online to be able to speak here, so you will not be able to speak. Okay, so if you'll just take a seat back, I'd appreciate it. Okay, members, without objection, we're going to go out of session to hear testimony. We are out of session. First up will be Mr. Pratt. If you'll give us your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. When you start speaking, we'll start the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. My name is Aiden Pratt. I live in Lebanon, Tennessee. I'm running for County Commission, and I'm representing the Engage Board organization here today. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I stand before you to strongly oppose the school voucher proposal. As we discuss the future of education in Tennessee, we must carefully consider the long-term impact of school voucher programs. While often presented as a solution to improve educational choice, these programs carry significant risks to our public schools, equity, and the future of our children. Let's begin with a foundational issue of public education. Most children, over 90%, attend public school. Our public schools are the backbone of our educational system, serving students from all walks of life with diverse needs, backgrounds, and abilities. By diverting public funds into private institutions, as y'all are doing, we undermine the financial stability of our schools. Data from the National Education Association showed that voucher programs in states like Arizona, Louisiana, Florida have resulted in financial strain on public schools, with funds being diverted away from classrooms to private institutions that are not being held to the same accountability standards that our public schools are. In some cases, districts have had to cut their teachers' salaries, reduce resources, or even close schools. Is this the future we want for Tennessee? Another major concern is accountability. Private schools that accept vouchers are not required to meet the same academic standards, adhere to the same regulations, or subject to the same oversight as our public schools. As a result, there is no guarantee that voucher-funded schools will deliver quality education. A 2019 study by the Institute of Education Sciences found that students using vouchers to attend private schools in Louisiana and Indiana experience lower academic outcomes in both reading and math, compared to their peers who remained in public schools. Furthermore, many private schools do not offer services with disabilities or English language learners, leading to even greater disparities in educational outcomes for Tennessee's most vulnerable students. Vouchers are disproportionately benefiting families with higher incomes, exacerbating educational inequality. According to a report from the Brookings Institute, families with the financial means to use school vouchers often live in areas with access to better resources, educational opportunities already, meaning vouchers do not significantly improve educational quality at all, especially in Tennessee. More troubling, schools can contribute further segregation, both racially and economically. By using public tax dollars to fund private schools, they can select their students and they may not be required to maintain diversity, equity, or inclusion. Vouchers have a potential to increase division within our schools. A study conducted by the Southern Education Foundation found that voucher programs in other states have worsened racial and socioeconomic segregation. We should be working together to bring our communities together, not divide them. School voucher programs also come at significant financial costs. A 2023 analysis by the Comptroller's Office of Tennessee estimated that implementing a statewide voucher program could cost tens of millions.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Drew Sutton. Mr. Sutton, your name, address, and then once you start speaking, we'll start the clock. No, we'll turn it on for you. You're on.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee, for the opportunity to come before you today. Tennessee Education Association joins educators, parents, business leaders, and local government officials from...
Mr. Sutton, hold on. Let's back up. Who you are, where you're from.
Drew Sutton, Tennessee Education Association. Apologies.
From the top.
Thank you. The TEA joins with educators, parents, business leaders, and local government officials from across Tennessee in opposing House Bill 6004. This opposition is not born out of a desire for control or a fear of change or new ideas, but rather out of grave concerns about the impacts programs like what's being proposed have on students' learning and of the cost implications on public schools' ability to continue to fulfill their mission of serving all students. Data demonstrate that voucher programs lead to negative outcomes for student learnings. And in the current program, the percentage of public school students statewide that are proficient or advanced in math, for instance, is more than double that of the students participating in the current voucher program, according to data available. Recent studies of other states have shown that the negative impacts of vouchers on student outcomes are compounded as the programs grow larger. Comparing such outcomes is going to be made much more difficult under this proposal, as it does not require the students to take TCAP tests used by public schools. In fact, the fiscal note assumes that no participating private schools will voluntarily take TCAP, as that option is permissive to the school. To discuss costs, the cost is estimated of this program to approach about $600 million in the first 3 years, with 2/3 of those vouchers projected to go to families whose children are already attending private schools. This will harm rural systems first and most by the fact that they tend to be more dependent on state funding for their schools, and they have less options in the way of private schools in their counties. More than 60% of the Tennessee students already attend a rural school. Nearly half of those counties have 0 private schools within their boundaries. This means tax dollars from these counties going to the state will largely be sent to urban and suburban counties, and the cost for this program will quickly balloon as vouchers are fully funded by the state under this bill and have planned annual growth by both increases in the TISA base to which they're tied and an increase in the number of vouchers each year. This growth will continue at a time when state revenues are currently below projection and expected to remain reduced in the coming years, which means the cost of this program could very well threaten the state's ability to fund other priorities, including public education funding. Because of the costs, we've seen local opposition across the state, with more than half of the school boards in Tennessee having passed a resolution in the last year and numerous local funding bodies doing the same. Opposition to this bill exists despite language intended to address enrollment loss and establish floor funding. According to the fiscal note, only 12 districts are projected to receive what's being called hold harmless funding in the first year of the program, and 15 school districts in that second year, despite by the state.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, to Mr. Pratt, you said you were from Lebanon, is that correct?
Yes, Representative.
Okay, and so I've seen that a lot of elected leaders and your superintendent, how do those elected leaders in your town, your county feel about vouchers?
Hold on, Mr. Pratt, let me recognize you, okay? Mr. Pratt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leaders in Wilson County, including Jeff Fletcher, our Director of Schools, has extremely opposed this bill. It is dangerous for our schools. It has dangerous implications for Wilson County and every county in the state, especially metro schools.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you. I have further questions for Mr. Sutton. Is that all right to keep going since these are guests?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Sutton, so could you tell me, as a special ed teacher of 27 years, I really am concerned. I hear a lot about how any parent can send their child to the school of their choice. So if you were a parent who really loves a particular private school in your district and you walk in with your child and say, hey, you're the school, you're my school choice. Does that school have to take them? And say their child is a special needs student, are they going to provide all the services that the public schools provide for that child?
Mr. Sutton.
Thank you for the question, Representative. The way I understand the bill is written, there is nothing that requires a school that receives an application from a student that's been accepted by this program. They're not guaranteed admission. That is still left at the discretion of the school, and there is specific language in the bill that states that the state shall not require any alteration to the admissions policies of participating schools. Relative to special education services, it's my understanding that the bill does not create any new additional requirements for providing services. So participating schools that don't currently have special education services they offer will not be required to do so.
So they're going to, I'm sorry.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So what you're saying is they don't have to take any child, even if that is the parent's choice. So many parents, many parents will not get their choice of schools. Is that correct? Okay.
Oh, hold on, Mr. Sutton, you got to answer.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your question, Representative. I believe that that is accurate. Yes, there's nothing that requires a school to accept a student. And I think one more thing I'd offer about that is when looking at the way this program can grow over time, it's actually tied to applications. It's not tied to students that are accepted. So that's another consideration, I think, when looking at this bill, is to your point, an application is not a guarantee of acceptance, but it still serves as the barometer by which the program might grow from one year to the next.
Chairman's prerogative. Mr. Sutton, we already have a program in the state of Tennessee through the federal government called IDEA. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And currently, right now, a parent that is in a public school setting with a special needs child under IDEA, if the parents believe that their educational needs are not being met by the public school system, current state law allows that parent to take their child out of the public school and enrollment in a private school. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chairman. If I understand your question, you're saying that if a student is receiving services at a public school, that the private or the parent may enroll them in a private school. I would say yes, that is
correct. Thank you very much. Okay. I come back to you now. Representative Gillespie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to get something clarified here first. And this is directed to Mr. Sutton. If you have a child with any type of learning disability or special need, and you're currently in public school and everything's working out fine, and this bill passes tomorrow, is there anything that prohibits you from keeping your child in that school and receiving those same services?
Mr. Sutton.
Thank you, Representative, for the question. No, I don't read anything in the bill that would require a child to be disenrolled from public school. That's still optional to the parent.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hold on. Let's get, raise your hands right now. Raise your hands if you want to speak, please. Wait a minute. Hakeem, hold on. Hakeem, Slater, White. Okay. Okay. Representative Gillespie, you finished?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Representative Hakeem, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sutton, in regards to special needs children, I believe the question that was being asked is that in private schools, are they required to take children with special needs?
According to the bill, Representative?
According to the bill.
According to the bill. Mr. Sutton?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for the question. No, I do not believe that any participating school would be required to admit anyone, whether they had a disability or not. But as I understand language in the bill, it does state that there are no additional requirements of them other than what is spelled out in federal law relative to individual services plans, which are different and distinct from an individual education plan, which is defined and overseen through federal law and IDEA. So those are, that distinction still exists under this bill.
If I may.
Follow up, Representative Hakeem. Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I heard something a little earlier about a bonus that teachers would receive. Is that as opposed to a salary increase? Would that be better economically, as you understand it, for a teacher to get this bonus as opposed to it being part of their salary going forward?
Thank you, Representative, for the question. I believe that an educator would likely tell you that they would prefer salary increases. It's recurring. And as I read the bill, the bonus is being contemplated as a one-time payment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is directed also at Mr. Sutton and kind of staying along the same lines of students with disabilities. Are you aware of any private schools in the state of Tennessee that serve students with disabilities exclusively?
Mr. Sutton?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I don't believe that I am aware of any I think there are probably a couple that serve exclusively special needs students. I couldn't name any off the top of my head. I would need to look into that and get back to you.
One follow-up, please. How many schools currently participate in our school choice initiative, our IEA initiative? How many private schools currently participate in that program?
Mr. Sutton?
Thank you, Chairman. I do not have the data, the number of participating schools in the IEA program in front of me, but I would be happy to look into that and get back to you. I know that enrollment in that program has remained relatively low over time. I want to say there are less than 1,000 participants in that program. So I'm not sure how many schools participate.
Thank you.
Chairman White?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is addressed to Mr. Pratt. First of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate your involvement and your youth and jumping in on this. My question is this: after the testimony of our sponsor laying out all the issues, hold harmless issues on this particular bill, but yet you continue to say this will be damaging to Wilson County. We can say that, but I want to itemize 1, 2, and 3. Where is the damage coming from in your viewpoint?
And before you answer that, Mr. Pratt, have you read the current legislation? Yes. Okay, Mr. Pratt, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, Representative. How it would be damaging specifically Wilson County is our schools are already underfunded. Our teachers are some of the lowest paid in the state. And I'm running for county commissions. I've been looking into a lot of our budget. And currently, this money that we are putting into private schools could be used to go into our public education. It could be used to raise our teacher pay from $50,000 to $65,000, $75,000, a livable wage. Because currently in the state of economics and how it's going to get much worse, that is not a livable wage. Wilson County currently has to pay for a lot. We don't have enough schools, and we are constantly growing. And our Department of Education does not have enough money to sufficiently keep building schools for these students. So like Lebanon High School, for example, they are overcrowded, teachers are overworked, they have full classrooms, and we still have the threat of gun violence in the school state very much. So we're just adding more issues onto our public schools instead of solving the issues.
Follow up?
Yes, thank you very much. And I do appreciate, are you aware of what we in the General Assembly have been doing for the past 10, 15 years for public education, where we continually put things in place where we are moving our teacher salaries up? That's one reason the governor wanted to do the one-time bonus, because many times we keep putting more money. As the Leader Lambert said, we put over $3.8 billion new dollars in the last number of years. So we've been focusing on education especially for our public schools. So we're moving up the beginning salary for first year teachers up to $50,000 as fast as we can. I think we'll hit that next year. So a state of 7 million people, we're putting a lot of attention to our public schools. So anyway, I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pratt would like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Representative. So $3.2 billion in 10 to 15 years is pennies to the state of Tennessee. California, Arizona, Washington, they've increased theirs by much more than that, sometimes $6 to $7 billion more. Our Department of Education gets a total of, I believe it's $9.2 billion. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. And our school system is still struggling. We can't pay our teachers enough to live. Our teachers are having to find second jobs, third jobs. Most of my teachers I knew had 2 or 3 jobs and could not sufficiently still afford everything they need to live. So when you say $3.2 billion in 10 to 15 years, that means nothing to me. And it means nothing to our educators, to our school districts, and we need to be doing more. It should have been $6 billion over 10 to 15 years, not 3.
Well, hopefully, Mr. Pratt, the lessons we've learned over the last 4 years will be changed here going forward, where the price of eggs won't be $10 a dozen. So, Representative Hawk, we got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And mine is really for the man who was not able to speak. Dr. Matt Hickson is the director of schools in Hawkins County, in my neck of the woods. And I just want to recognize Dr. Hickson and his desire to be here and the importance with which he sees this issue. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I forget your name. I apologize.
Pratt.
Pratt. Thank you, Mr. Pratt. I've been a school board member in Clarksville, Montgomery County for the last several years. $3.8 billion is a lot of money. And our teachers in Clarksville, Montgomery County have been thankful for the huge salary increases that they have received over the last couple of years. I've heard directly from them.
Hey, I'm not going to go there, folks.
I've heard directly from them about that. So you're trying to say that the salary increases they've received, that please describe what you're trying to say there.
Yeah,
Mr. Pratt. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, Representative Mayberry. So I've been running for county commission, and I've been talking with our teachers. And what I mean is, it means nothing to them. $50,000 is not enough to live. They have to work 2 to 3 jobs. Some of them are working at restaurants to make ends meet. Some of them can't afford diapers for their children. This is a issue we have in Tennessee. And the $3.8 billion you're talking about is over 10 to 15 years, as Representative White said. So you really think it's justifiable for $3.8 billion over 10, 15 years when we could have had $5 to $6 billion instead of funding a voucher scam that will ruin our schools and ruin our public education systems? So the teachers should be paid $75,000. That is a livable wage, and I'll stand firm on that.
Follow up?
Yeah, as has been said before, this will not affect our public schools in their finances. This is a scholarship. It's not a voucher. It's going to fund students themselves. Students in this state right now that currently don't get funded if they want to have other choices in their education. It's going to be able to help fund them. But our public education, it will not affect their funding, but we are continuously investing here in Tennessee in our public schools. I know from my county that our teachers are appreciative of our continuously growing funding for our salaries, and we're going to continue to do that here in the state, and it's going to continue to grow.
Mr. Pratt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Mayberry, let me put this in perspective to you. When the state of Tennessee decides when it comes budget time, we're spending too much money on these voucher schemes, where do you think they're going to cut the budget from? Do you think it's going to be from what, Homeland Security, law enforcement? No. They're going to target education because that's what the GOP has done consistently. They have targeted our schools.
Hold on, Mr. Pratt. Be careful there now. Go ahead.
Trust, I am being careful. The GOP has consistently undermined our schools. And when they realize we're spending too much money on private schools, they will end up cutting from our public schools. Or worse, our Homeland Security Department needs funding. Who says y'all won't cut from that too?
Members, over the last 6 years, in fact, over the last 10 years, we have increased the budget for education in the state of Tennessee from $3.7 billion to $7.1 billion. I've sat up here for the last 6 years, some of you a lot longer than that. And this General Assembly, no matter who's been in charge since 2010, has always invested more in our public school education and our public schools across the state of Tennessee. And now we sit here getting ready to put more money behind public education when it comes to buildings that need renovations, buildings that need upgrades. So that statement that was made there was grossly inaccurate, so I'm going to move on. Representative Bulso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pratt, in response to Chairman White's question, you mentioned that overcrowding was a problem in Wilson County. The essence of the governor's Education Freedom Scholarship Initiative is that parents will have a choice, if it's adopted, that would allow them to take children who are currently in public schools and move them to private schools. Do you agree that to the extent that parents actually take advantage of the EFS program and move children from public schools to private schools, that will reduce overcrowding both in Wilson County and in other school systems across the state?
I do not agree, because no matter if you're pulling the students out, I mean, Wilson County, we have 3 private schools, that's it. They're not going to be able to take thousands of students that we have to solve the overcrowding issue. And quite frankly, because Metro is growing so much, Wilson County is trying to keep up by rapidly expanding, rapidly building. And we have not built a new school in around 4 or 5 years, I believe, because we don't have the funds to. And while this legislator sits on its hands and it talks about actually creating a solution to the problem, it just creates more problems in the way. We see what happened when we asked for gun violence to end. We asked
on the bill.
Oh, okay, well, we've seen what happened when we asked for teacher pay. My representative said pretty much no, that we just raised it. $50,000, Gino Bulso, do you make $50,000? Can you live off that? Because I sure as hell can't.
Language, be careful. Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll simply note that we've had challenges with math proficiency in our public school system in Tennessee. And I think it's obvious to anyone who is a proficient in mathematics that if children leave the public school system under the EFS program and move to private schools, that does have the effect of reducing student populations in public schools and does reduce overcrowding, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Pratt, go ahead.
Yes. So, well, you may say it's going to help our overcrowding issue. It's just going to cause private schools to become overcrowded, and we're just going to have more students who move in from other counties surrounding. We have people moving from Rutherford, Metro, Cumberland County, people are moving to Wilson County. We are rapidly growing in the state of Tennessee. Californians are moving here. Washington, D.C.'s residents are moving here. We have rapidly grown over 10 to 15 years, as we can all see. So when you say that it will solve an overcrowding issue, I say it may for a short-term period of time, but in the long run, there will be millions more who move here, millions more who go to our school. The real solution of this is to invest in, and you brought math proficiency skills. Well, if we invested in math, then maybe some of y'all would know how to do it, wouldn't y'all? And some of y'all would know that
We're gonna.
Mr.
Pratt.
I'm speaking.
Mr. Pratt, don't do that. Don't go there. Mr. Pratt. Mr. Pratt. We will maintain decorum in here, okay? Okay? Now, we are asking you asked to testify, sir. We're going to ask you pointed questions. All I'm going to ask you to do is just respond to those questions, okay? So you want a second to regroup here? Are you okay? You okay?
Yes.
Okay. Representative Bulso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we move to the next panel.
Okay. Without objection? Okay. Objection. We got 3. We're going to take a vote here.
We're out of session. We can't.
Then you said we can't move on to something else?
I don't think we can.
Just want to clarify here. Representative Bulso, did you make a motion to go back into session? Turn them on. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, my motion was to move to the next panel, not to go out of session.
Okay.
Or to return to session.
Okay. Well, we got other people, so let me continue on with this questioning. I apologize. I thought he has to go back into session. It's my fault. So, okay, next up is Representative Gillespie. Pass. Representative Dixie.
Mr. Pratt, I had a quick question for you. How old are you?
I'm 18 years old.
18?
Yes.
I want to tell you, thank you for standing up to these people up here and speaking your mind and speaking for your age group. It takes a lot of bravery and courage to come up here and be bullied by some of these people up here because they want to look at you as if you don't know what we're doing impacts you directly. So I truly appreciate you coming up here, having the courage and standing toe to toe, but being respectful while you're doing it. Some of my colleagues up here can't even keep the decorum because they can't act as adults. You've acted more of an adult in this room than some of my colleagues on this dais. So thank you again for coming up, stating, knowing your facts, and speaking your voice. So thank you so much. And my question to you is, do you know in Wilson County, what's the average cost of the 3 private schools?
Mr. Pratt.
I believe a Friendship Christian is the highest with being around 22,000.
And what was the lowest?
Representative Dixie.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Follow up. Representative Dixie.
And the lowest.
That's something I have not yet seen.
Okay. So is it safe to say that $7,000 the parents would still have to subsidize some part of their education? So even if it wouldn't solve the overcrowding issue, it would just subsidize a family that can already afford private school. And then there's no reason to believe that there's space for these additional kids in the system right now, correct?
Mr. Pratt, do you have a working knowledge of, you said Friendship Christian?
I have friends who go there, and
Do you
I
have
know
a working knowledge of Friendship Christian and how many people are enrolled there?
how many people are enrolled there total. No, I know around an estimate.
So we're speculating. Go ahead.
No, that was my question. That was really more of a statement than anything. But again, thank you again, and I appreciate you showing resolve, being calm, regathering yourself in the moment of being, it could have gotten a little anxious, but thank you for keeping a level head when others couldn't.
Members, in regards to this financial $7,000 assistance, don't forget in private schools, that individual can still apply for financial aid. And that financial aid could erase the rest of that debt based off of the economic income of those parents. So next up, Representative Lafferty. You've already had your 2.
No, I want to follow up to you.
What?
I want to follow up to you.
I can't hear you.
He wants to follow up to you.
Oh, I'm going to go to Representative Gillespie. I'm sorry, Representative Lafferty.
Thank you, Chairman. I was planning on asking Mr. Pratt about his work experience, about his educational attainment, but Mr. Dixie asked the question about his age. I'm going to assume that fresh out of high school and no elongated work experience. Is that correct?
Mr. Pratt?
I've worked in the Democratic Party for around the past 8 years, since I was around 10 when I started doing data analyzation for the Democratic Party of Rutherford County. Since then, I have made it a passion and a goal to protect our public school teachers and to fight for public school. I'm currently in school to get my business administration degree / finance.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Any follow-up? Nope.
No.
Nope. Any other members? Okay, we're going to go back. I'm coming in. Hold on. Representative Hakeem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pratt, earlier, if I'm correct, Mr. Sutton gave us a number of 60% of our students are in rural communities. And what would, as you see it, would be the impact on those local communities as to the number of schools that are in the community? Would that, I know it may be perceived as increasing the number of options, but to those entities that have been the mainstay of those communities, both for jobs and for opportunities, what do you see as the impact on those existing schools?
Mr. Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Hakeem. So in our rural county, the average wage is $60,000 a year. So to put around $12,000 towards your child's education sometimes can hurt the bank. And our existing schools are already not having the proper maintenance done, and they barely have the funds to keep their schools up and running. Some of them have had broken bathroom stalls from students that have been prolonged for months. So this voucher scheme, as we're calling it, all it's going to do is going to take more money away from our public schools and for things like maintenance and stuff. And I know they say it won't, but in the long term, it really will. And then our schools will just be nothing but privatized like our prisons are.
All right.
Follow-up, Representative?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you see the potential of students leaving that county, going to another county, for education?
Mr. Pratt.
I do. I would say some of our students who can afford already do go out of county for better educational opportunities. Some of my constituents in Wilson County, some of their kids go to Innsworth because they can't afford it. And some of them go to Rutherford County private schools. But the Wilson County private schools they're not huge. They're not booming and they're not making millions of dollars. They are getting by. Friendship Christian does not have, I don't think it has more than 800 students. It might even have less than that. And while our public schools have 1,200 students, it's just unfair. It's going to hurt these privatized schools. It's going to really hurt our community, our economics, and it's going to hurt the rural communities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think we should be really clear here. Tennessee teacher salaries are some of the lowest in the country. The family of four for a low income child to get a voucher, they can make up to $174,000. And the reality is those four would have to be teachers and just to get to that amount of money. So 2 teachers are not even close to that, not even half of that. I think that we need to point out that Tennessee teachers are at the bottom in the country as well as far as what they are paid. And we haven't got to 50,000 yet for a starting salary. We should have done that in the year we talked about getting to 50,000, but it said we put it several years down the road. And the reality is, by the time we get to that year where that's supposed to take effect, we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. And so it really is disingenuous to talk about how much money we've put in when we remain 45th in the country in per pupil spending. That's the number we need to remember here. So I know that almost the entire time of the 27 years that I taught, I also had a second job. That's a fact. And so what do you think, both of you, about the fact that $174,000 for a family of 4 is the level that they're considering low income? And how much of the actual population does that intake, does that bring in?
Mr. Sutton, you look bored. We'll let you go first.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question, Representative. As I understand it, the the threshold that's contemplated for the first 10,000 being 300% of free and reduced lunch eligibility is more than double the median household income in Tennessee. I couldn't tell you the exact number or the percentage of the population that would fall above that would be ineligible under that 10,000. But I do think if you study the fiscal note, it's pretty telling. The analysis says that it is assumed that 2/3 of these vouchers are going to go to existing private school students, both for the 10,000 that I think would be, it'd be tough to call income restricted, and for the 10,000 that are uncapped, and any that were created in future years that would also be uncapped. So I think that kind of functionally answers your question that according to fiscal review, they do not see any change happening with that income restriction versus, for families that are already affording and paying for private school and those that aren't.
Mr. Pratt, you want to answer here?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll speak to Wilson County. Our average income is $60,000 a year. Does that sound anywhere close to $174,000? No, and they definitely are not the low income that the legislator thinks they are.
Follow up. Representative Johnson, follow
Yeah,
up. I'm sorry.
I'm kind of formulating the question because, the reality is most folks don't make that amount of money. So what you just referred to, that 2/3, is the exact same number of the audit I was talking about. That is an independent audit that all of the bills in the Tennessee legislature get. And that's what they said, that 35% of this will be the only part that are new people, that are new public school students that have switched over. And therein lies the problem in the funding. And we still have serious questions about hold harmless. But what I would ask each of you is, can you tell me what it's like, your favorite child, but what is your biggest concern with this piece of legislation?
Mr. Pratt.
My biggest concern with this legislation is not only that our public tax dollars are being taken out of our schools to go to rich people, but also that Wilson County will have to shut down some of our schools if we get any less money from the legislator.
Mr. Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for the question, Representative. I think that you brought up a couple things, so I did want to talk a little bit about the hold harmless that you had referenced. I think that it is concerning that there are only a handful of districts that are projected to get that money. And if you look at the fiscal note, the way that that's explained is that it is assumed that there will continue to be a 3.13% increase in the TISA base every year because that is historically what has been the case. I don't believe they said going back how far, but recent years would suggest that that would continue to be the case. I think my concern is related to that as the costs of this program continue to grow, and we have no reason to assume that they won't. The fiscal note makes clear that they anticipate all 20,000 will be taken in year one, and the additional 5,000 will be taken in year two. For the most part, because there is very little other than filling out an application that a family has to do to qualify for this, since there are no income caps on future years. The concern, I think, is that as that program does grow and draw more dollars from the general fund, looking around us to states with similar programs as this, we see that growth in public K-12 funding does slow down as these programs grow and become more costly. And so I would worry, among other things, that perhaps we shouldn't just assume that that base is going to continue to grow. And if it doesn't, then you're going to start to see a lot more districts that are going to be receiving less money. And the way the hold harmless is structured right now, to kind of essentially get them their total allocation up to their previous year, that would be happening while costs continue to go up for a number of different reasons. Labor costs go up, inflation, things of that nature. So in effect, if all that hold harmless would be doing in that instance is keeping them level while their costs are going up and the cost to run the school system is increasing, then functionally what you're going to see is the total amount that district's receiving per child is going to start to fall. And that is, I think, where we see problems occurring down the road. And in other states, you're definitely seeing that happen right now with public ed budgets being cut as programs like this get bigger.
We don't have anybody else, Representative Johnson, so last question.
Thank you. Okay, so along those lines, that's something that I fear too, something that a lot of constituents I've talked to are very afraid about it, having to have a tax increase, because what we're seeing is predictions of what each county is going to be short in their education funding. How are they going to make it up? And you think about counties like Knox or Davidson might be better suited to making up some of that revenue. But when you're talking about $2.8 million in Hardeman County, how are they going to make that up? And we have seen it in every single state. So, you can say ours are different. You can say all of those things, but there's literally everything to indicate there's going to be a problem, and we're going to end up with a $500 million shortfall in a budget like Arizona did, or, in similar situations with Ohio. And ultimately, there's no question that those dollars that have been in our public schools are being depleted every single year for those private organizations. So thank you for both of your answers. I appreciate that.
Members not seeing any more questions. Mr. Pratt, Mr. Sutton, I do appreciate your testimony. We're going to move on to the other side of this argument. Okay? Have your seats, gentlemen. When I call your name, please come up to the front. This will be in support of the bill. Zach Wishart? Zach, was it? Zach Wishart? We'll give him a second here. Betsy Henderson, please come up front. Mm-hmm. Okay. You can pick a spot. That's fine. Drew Middleton. Kevin Klein. Walter Blanks Jr. Michael Hendricks. I don't have him. Okay. One last call. Zach Wishart. You better hurry. He's on his way from outside. Just give him a second. Michelle? Okay. All right. we're trying to find Mr. Wissert right now. If he doesn't come in, then we'll move on, okay? So we'll start over here. If you'll introduce yourself, where you're from, and then you'll get your 3 minutes, okay? And we'll just work our way right down the line, all right? Go ahead. When you start speaking, we'll start the clock.
Kevin Klein, Lakeway Christian Schools, East Tennessee. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. It is really an honor to get to speak with you today. I am deeply grateful for the sacrifices that each of you make for our state, for all our families and our communities. I'm a former public educator, as a teacher, administrator, but I currently serve as the superintendent of schools for Lakeway Christian Schools, which is in rural East Tennessee. For years, I dedicated my life to serving in public education because I do believe in its critical role in shaping the future of our children and our communities. However, today I do stand before you as a passionate supporter of public schools and a strong advocate for Governor Lee's school choice bill, House Bill 6004. Supporting this bill is not choosing one type of school over another. Rather, it's empowering parents and families to make the best decision for their child's education. As an educator, we know that no two students are the same. Each child has unique strengths and challenges, goals and aspirations. For some of those students, a public school setting is exactly where they will thrive. But for others, a private school, a charter school, homeschool, online school environment may be the best fit for them. School choice ensures that families have access to options that meet the individual needs of their child, regardless of their zip code or their socioeconomic status. This bill provides an opportunity for expanded access. It will foster innovation, encourage healthy competition, all the while reinforcing our commitment as Tennesseans to give every child a quality education. It's important to note this is not about undermining public schools. It's about complementing and ensuring that we all work together to serve the best interests of all students in Tennessee. As a former public educator and a current private school educator, I can testify to each of you that the fact when parents have tools to choose the best educational path for their child, everyone benefits, students, schools, and our communities. This is a step toward a more equitable and student-centered education system, and I urge you to support this bill for the sake of Tennessee's children and not their futures. Thank you for your time and commitment to the children of Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Very brief. Mr. Middleton, I believe you're next. Name, where you're from?
Yeah, my name is Drew Middleton, and I'm a parent from Nashville, Tennessee, here in Davidson County. In 2010, my wife and I chose to make Nashville our home. In 2012, we had our son, and in 2014, we had our daughter. When our kids became old enough to start kindergarten, thankfully, we were zoned for a well-established public elementary school, so that's where we placed them. Little did we know that around his first grade year, our son would be diagnosed on the autism spectrum. With an IEP, our son was given extra attention by his teachers, but as the years progressed, it started to feel like the system was starting to pass him through grade to grade. We noticed this trend when our son's standardized tests came back below average year after year. Yet he was given A, B, and C grades by his teachers. When it came time to look at middle school options, we determined our zoned public school wasn't the right fit for our son. We looked into local magnet schools, but our son wasn't qualified due to his low standardized tests. We had no other option but to consider private education. But the tuition was more than we were able to afford. My wife and I are both self-employed, average middle-class, tax-paying Tennesseans, and we don't have the ability to homeschool. Because of our son's learning disabilities, we were approved for funding through the Katie Beckett and the IEA programs to afford his tuition. Our son's new private school recommended he repeat 5th grade to catch up with his peers, which again left us a bit frustrated with his results from public education. But it was our only way to ensure a promising move forward in our son's educational journey. Our daughter is now in 4th grade and at the same public school where our son went, and we are worried about what is next for her. Since our daughter doesn't have a learning disability, we won't be able to secure the same IEA funding for her private education so she can go to the same school as her brother. Instead, we have to consider taking each of our kids to separate schools, which we fear will render very different outcomes. Today, I ask you to consider parents like us as you deliberate the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. A statewide school choice program would give kids like our daughter a chance to receive the education that we, her parents, believe is best for her. While I know that at times it takes a community to raise a child, the ultimate decision must be in the parents' hands. And right now, these parents' hands feel a bit tied. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton. I believe Ms. Henderson. Name, where you're from, please.
Good afternoon. Betsy Henderson from Knox County. While I am chair of the Knox County School Board, I am here in my individual capacity. I'm a proud parent of 2 public school children. While the legislature has many pressing issues to address this session, today I want to focus on one critical issue while we're all here, school choice. Too often we find ourselves divided into two camps, for or against public schools. As someone who values and supports our public schools, I reject this political framing. It's time for us to shift the conversation to what truly matters, what is best for our children. Education is about building a future where every child has the opportunity to thrive. School choice is a pathway to open doors of opportunity, especially for families who lack the resources. It allows parents to make decisions tailored to their child's individual needs. Imagine the relief of a mom struggling to find the right school for her child with dyslexia, or a low-income family seeking a better environment for their bullied child. Every child is unique with distinct learning styles and needs. Education should be the great equalizer and is the most powerful tool to achieve the American dream. By embracing school choice, we empower parents to choose the best educational path for their child, regardless of zip code or income. Opponents argue that school choice drains resources, yet our children's education cannot be a zero-sum game. In Knox County schools, we had 3,000 students unenroll in 2020, yet our school budget has increased by over 35% over the past 5 years. This is largely due to all of you and our governor who has invested in public education, demonstrating that we can support both public schools and school choice. We cannot allow another year to pass without giving every family this freedom. Our children are only young once, and they cannot afford to wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Would you tell me how to pronounce your name, sir? Turn on. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. It's Zach Wishart.
Mr. Wishart, your name, where you're from, and once you start speaking, we'll start the clock.
Absolutely. Zach Wishart, Knox County middle school and high school principal at River's Edge Christian Academy in Knoxville. I'm going to highlight for you today 4 reasons why that you should vote yes in supporting school choice. Number 1, expanding access for opportunity for all students. Every child deserves the chance to attend a school that aligns with their individual needs and learning style. Education freedom accounts ensure that all families, whether in urban, suburban, or rural areas, can access the education options that will best support their children's success. It's about increasing opportunity for every child, no matter their background or zip code. Number 2 is empowering parents to make the best choice for their child. Parents are the best advocates for their children's education. The EFA bill puts parents in control, giving them the freedom to choose the education option that will help their child thrive. Whether it's a specialized curriculum, a different learning environment, or a faith-based education, parents know what their children need to succeed. By empowering parents, we create a stronger connection between families and schools, leading to a better outcomes for students. When parents choose, students succeed. Number 3, encouraging positive competition among schools. Expanding the EFA program fosters healthy competition across all types of schools, including public, charter, and private. This competition encourages schools to innovate and improve in order to meet the needs of students. Evidence from other states has shown that competition in education gives overall improvements in school quality, benefiting all students and educational systems. While critics of expanding access sometimes argue that education freedom accounts increase the cost of education, the data from states like Arizona and Florida show that universal EFA programs can actually reduce the cost per pupil while improving outcomes. By funding students at a lower rate per pupil than traditional public schools, states can save money while providing more educational choices for families. Florida's Universal ESA program, which expanded to all students in 2023, is a powerful example of how school choice can transform education. The results have been nothing short of remarkable. Tens of thousands of students are now receiving a more personalized education, and the state has saved money in the process. Passing the EFA program in Tennessee could help reduce costs while increasing access to high-quality education for all students. As a public school graduate, as a former public school employee, I urge you to now support education freedom for all Tennessee students. Thank you.
2 seconds left. Very good, Mr. Wisser. Mr. Blanks, your name, where you're from, please, and once you start speaking, we'll start the clock.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Walter Blanks Jr. I'm a resident of Davidson County here in Nashville, and I sit before you today as a father and advocate, but someone whose life was transformed by the power of school choice. In Columbus, Ohio, I grew up in a neighborhood that was surrounded by poverty, crime, and low expectations. I'm number 2 of 6 children, and my parents did everything that they could to ensure that we thrived in our educational environment. Unfortunately, resources were strapped and opportunities for me were nowhere to be found. I struggled. As a kid who was diagnosed with ADHD, I could never really find my place in school. I was so severely bullied to the point where it was a common occurrence that I would get in trouble and get detention for hiding in the bathroom in between classes to avoid bullies. And my parents had the final straw when the principal got a call, or my mom got a call from the principal that I had been involved in a fight. And the principal told my mother that if you just give us 5 years, we'll have the middle school turned around, we'll have the high school turned around, and it will be a place that I can thrive. My mother looked at that principal and said, 5 years, Walter will either be in jail or in a body bag. And we certainly don't have time for either of those things. She grabbed my hand and I never stepped foot in that school. Thanks to school choice, I was able to be in an environment where not only was I safe, but I was able to thrive and flourish and get caught up. I spent 6th grade all the way through 12th grade at that private school, and it absolutely not only changed my life, but it saved my life. Now, as a father with a 10-month-old, I'm starting to look at his options and figure out what works best for him. And I guarantee you where we're zoned right now in Davidson County, the numbers do not match what I want for my son. Because of my story, because of my experiences, I've had the opportunity to sit next to President Trump and not only tell him I was coming for his job, but have serious discussions about the power of school choice, not just at the federal level, but across the country. If the only way to protect the current system is to keep families trapped in it, then we have a massive issue on our hands. As a country, but more importantly as a state, we can no longer allow time to go by as children fall through the cracks. As we are having this conversation, there are countless children across the country begging their parents not to send them to school. I know because I was one of them. Students in the state need action now. Thank you for listening to my story.
Mr. Hendricks, name and where you're from, and once you start speaking, we'll start the clock.
Michael Hendricks, Policy Director for Governor Bill Lee. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here on behalf of Governor Lee to speak on behalf of the Education Freedom Act. This legislation is rooted in the belief that when parents choose, students succeed. Education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life. Every Tennessee child deserves to attend the school that fits their unique needs, regardless of zip code or income. The Education Freedom Act empowers Tennessee parents with the freedom to pick the right school for their child, while giving families a choice in where their tax dollars are spent. In the past 6 years, Tennessee has made great strides to strengthen education, but there's more work to do to ensure that every child in our state can reach their full potential. Now is the time to bring education freedom to every Tennessee family, with school choice sweeping the nation all the way to the White House. Today, 33 states offer school choice, 12 with universal options, many of which are our neighboring competitor states. Over 1 million students nationwide today are recipients of scholarships just like the one before us today. And for good reason. More than 200 studies over the past 20 years have consistently shown rising test scores, better educational attainment, and better life outcomes for students thanks to school choice. And over the same 20 years, Tennessee students have flourished thanks to choice programs like the Hope Scholarship, where funding follows them to the public or private higher ed institution of their choice. The IEA program then extended choice for K through 12 students with disabilities, and the ESA pilot followed by serving students from struggling districts. Today, ESA students are enjoying rising test scores, growing enrollment, and 99% parent satisfaction. Since 2019, Tennessee has increased annual education funding by over $2 billion, and that's in state dollars alone. We've modernized our funding formula through TISA and consistently raised teacher pay, including working with the General Assembly to pass the largest teacher pay raise in Tennessee history. The Education Freedom Act doubles down on those investments in our public schools and our classroom teachers. So let's be clear, Tennessee can give parents choice while supporting our public schools. We can, we are, and we will continue to do so. This legislation embodies our state's most cherished values: individual opportunity, parental empowerment, and a steadfast commitment to giving every child a fair chance at success. The zip code of a child's birth should never determine the quality of their education. The Education Freedom Act is more than a policy, it's a promise. A promise that in Tennessee, every family will have the freedom to choose the right educational path for their child, and every student will have a genuine opportunity to succeed in the classroom and beyond.
That's pretty good. Members, you've heard the testimony. Do we have any questions? Representative Dixie?
Thank you. So we talked a lot about choice. Well, you guys have talked a lot about choice. And when we come to talk about choice, you know, there's basically a few types of schools. We have like the public schools, we have charter schools, and we have private schools. Charter schools are public schools, right? So in essence, for this conversation, we're really talking about the school choice is a private school. And this is not a parent's choice. The parents don't decide if the child will go to a private school. The private school decides if they will accept that student with the voucher. This means the school has total control of the choice. For Mr. Klein and Mr. Witcher, with the Christian schools, over the last 5 years, how has your enrollment, has it been up, is it down, is it flat?
Mr. Klein?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, our enrollment has quadrupled since 2020. We were less than I think 155 students in 2017. Right now we're at 1,659 students across our 4 campuses in rural East Tennessee, from just outside of Knoxville to Johnson City.
Mr. Wishart?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. So we have about 12% year-over-year growth for the past probably 4 to 5 years.
Follow up?
Mm-hmm. So how, if this were to pass, how would this impact the enrollment at your school, and would you have room for the growth if it does?
Mr. Klein?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We are actually today, my team is meeting with a contractor in Johnson City to complete a construction project for a school in that area that would expand our growth by over 800 students in the Northeast Tennessee region alone. And then in our region, toward East Knoxville, we have the capacity of adding about 250 more students right now, as far as if they could enroll tomorrow. And so that would allow us the opportunity to enroll other students and families that currently could not afford it, even with our financial aid model.
Mr. Wishart?
Sure. We use we house our school in neighborhood churches. And so one of the reasons we do that is to keep costs low so that we can be accessible to as many families as possible. And so one option that we would have is to create additional campuses to continue serving more students. We have a model where that our elementary students, we have multiple feeder elementary campuses that all feed into one centralized middle and high school, which we have capacity to add students to at the middle and high school, and also the possibility to add additional elementary campuses to expand capacity should there be a demand.
So vouchers would be a part of your financial model going forward.
Mr. Klein?
No, I would argue that it would not be part of our financial model. Currently, we've been able to grow without the educational savings account. This educational savings account growth to me is about parents. It's about the ability for them. I currently have families that I see parents having to take additional jobs and things of that nature because they feel as though our schools are best for their child, and so they're paying the taxes, they're working extra shifts to try to do that, and so this would allow families that are currently enrolled to be able to do that. And then families that also can't afford with financial aid and ESA, that would maybe potentially allow students to be there. But we've not, I would say, completely not built our financial model for ESAs.
Mr. Wishart.
Yes, sir. I would agree that ours, it would be the same. We would not be, although the ESA amount would fully cover our tuition, we wouldn't be wholly dependent on because we have some tuition paying families already. We have a number of families that this would be life-changing for. Before coming here, I talked to a dad who lives in Representative Davis's district in South Knoxville, and he was telling me, I am driving Uber Eats 2 and 3 nights a week to pay for tuition. This would be a life-changing opportunity for my family. And so we have families like that where the ESA would truly change their lives. But no, to answer your question, it would not be our whole financial model.
Mr. McCalman, Representative McCalman, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we go back into session.
Second? Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. 3 hands, please. 3 hands. Okay, gonna take a vote here. Well, I have a motion. Hold on here. Hold on now. Hold on. There was a motion made. As chairman, I have to honor that motion. Now, hold on. Mr. McCalman made the motion, and it was seconded by, it's over here. Who seconded it? Representative Slater. So we have a first and second. So is there an objection? Yes. Is there an objection? Fine. I need 3 hands. Okay, we're gonna vote. We're gonna vote to go back into session here. All those in favor of going back into session say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. Ayes have it. We're back in session. Back in session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for testifying. You can have your seats. Just give him a second. Give him a second. Folks, here we go. Please take your seats. We are back in session. Leader Lambert, and you want to make any comments about what you've heard? Go ahead. Turn them on. There you go.
No, Mr. Chairman, I have no comments at this time. I stand ready for questions. There's quite a bit back and forth. There's much I could respond to, but not at this time.
Okay. Chairman Slater. Turn them on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call previous question on the bill.
Do I have a second? We have a second on the bill. It's a non-debatable. I have 3 hands. We'll be voting on whether to call the question or not. Okay. All those in favor of moving the previous question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Ayes have it. We're on the bill as amended. Now, please maintain your order or you're asked to leave. Representative, this committee has spoken. Point of order. Representative. Ladies and gentlemen, please let us conduct our business here so we can hear. Hold on. Hold on. Representative Johnson, you have a point of order. What is your point of order?
Yes, so I'm really confused. We haven't even been able to question the sponsor. I still, if he's an attorney, I kind of have some questions because regarding constitutional issues and that type of thing, which I was holding for him. This is a travesty. We're talking about $500 million. I mean, now and $1 billion by the time we get into 4 years, and we're not allowed to question the sponsor on this bill? Outrageous. This is not a democratic process. This is authoritarianism.
Okay. Representative
Can we
Keem,
not
you have
discuss the issue?
we're ready to vote here. Do you have a question on the procedure right now? Representative Keem, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if people are not going to be heard, why would you expect them to sit quietly and accept a disenfranchisement from this system? It is not in the best interest of allowing people to speak, to ask questions in the interest of clarity. And I just wanted to put that on the record. I'm just so disheartened about the actions of this body, afraid of questions being asked.
Members, we are in a position right now voting on House Bill 6004. Now, let me explain something to you. We were going to vote electronically here, but the clerk has let me know we've got a problem with the electronics where it's misrecording votes. So the clerk is going to take a roll call like we always have in the past. Everybody understand that? The vote. We are in the process right now. The question's been called. The question was upheld by this committee. We are now voting on House Bill 6004 as amended. As amended. But we're going to do a roll call where we have to say yay or nay instead, like the old days.
Is it possible for you and I to talk to the clerk right quick about that? It is possible.
It is possible.
We just literally.
Here's
talk to the clerk
what,
about
let
another
me,
issue.
can I,
Yes, thank you.
what do you want to talk to the clerk about? Maybe I can answer your question. If I can't, maybe we'll go get the clerk. Okay. Going to take a 20-second recess. This is one of the reasons why we're going to take the vote, because we're having problems from other committees that were in meeting at the same time, microphone problems and vote recording problems. So we want to make sure we get this right. So we're going to take a roll call vote like we always have in the past, one at a time, and you'll be called on and you give a yay or nay or present. Everybody understand what we're doing? The question's been called on the bill. We're going to take the vote on House Bill 6004 to send it on to GovOps. Okay? Madam Clerk, take the roll. Take the vote, I'm sorry. No, we already did. It's on the bill. Good, Madam Clerk. Turn your mic on. Hold on, we'll get you. There you go.
Representative Bolso.
Aye.
Camper. No. Carringer. Aye. Davis. Aye. Dixie.
No.
Eldridge.
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Hakeem.
No.
Haston.
Aye.
Hawk.
No.
Hicks.
Aye.
Johnson.
Hell no. Oh, girl.
Come on.
Lafferty.
Aye.
Mayberry.
Aye.
Marsh.
Aye.
McCalman.
Aye.
Moody.
Aye.
Raper.
No.
Reeves.
Aye.
Salinas. Stevens.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Slater.
Aye.
Chairman Spicky.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 17 aye and 7 noes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. House Bill 6004 passes and moves on to government operations. Members, thank you for your service to this committee. We're going to adjourn right now.